Guardians. I'm the head of Red Team Operations, and I'm also a senior security consultant. I've been specializing now for a few years in red teaming and pen testing. Previously, I used to work within healthcare and financial industries, and too many certs there to list, but feel free to take a look. So, why am I giving this talk? A little over a year ago, I was working on a pen test. I was in a network segment where I only had port 445, 137, 139 open to a domain controller. I was able to do some null sessions on the DC, dump all the users for the domain, and only account I recovered was the backup operator's account, which had backup operations enabled for the domain controller. So that's sort of how I got to where I was. Once I actually got there, what I did is I actually went and set up my own lab, simulating the same thing to figure out how I could use the backup operator's account to do some damage against the domain controller and what I could do. So a little bit of history. From my experience, most organizations usually have at least one account in the backup operators group, if not more. I've seen as many as 20 or 30. And when I ask why, nobody seems to know. Usually the account's been around for quite some time, and passwords usually haven't gotten changed since the account actually got created. I've seen accounts get migrated from one backup solution to another. No password change, everything's still around. Sometimes even the old backup system is still around. And many times they're also used for backing up a whole number of systems across that entire domain, not just the domain controller. So a little bit of history of the account. It's a built-in container in Active Directory, and the backup operators can override security restrictions on files for backing up and restoring files, something you need to do. Some of the things you can't do, and what I was trying to do with this was actually get code execution on the domain controller from across the network. So that's sort of the basis of this talk, that I was trying to do everything over the network without physically going to the machine, because I couldn't. So don't have remote desktop access with the backup operator account, no local admin permissions on the system, and you can't launch processes from over the network. So I was sort of stuck at this point. I could view a lot, but couldn't do anything else. So I went and started digging in for what I was allowed to do. You can log on locally at the console if you're locally at the system, log on as a batch job on the system, shut it down, or you can back up and restore files to directories on the system. That's when things started to get a little interesting. So, in order to do this and back up files on the system, I was running from another system on the network, just the Windows 10 host. And from a high integrity session, the command prompt, you can back up files from the system. I started a command prompt and used run as with net only to do it from across the network, since I was logged in as another user. And you can either copy single files from the domain controller using robocopy, and the /b flag there is what's important. That's what actually gives you the backup permissions for it to run the backup. You can also copy entire directories. /e will also copy directories that don't actually have any files in there. You can do /s, but it won't copy over the empty folders on the target system. So, little video here. So I'm going to go ahead, listing out the user I'm currently running as on the system. I'm going to go ahead and run as with net only and start up a command prompt. Now I'm going to use the backup account for that with the command prompt that I'm launching. Backup account right there, ing backup, launching cmd.exe. Put in the password, and we're now running across the network as the backup account. So now I'm actually going to use robocopy to go and copy down group policy from one of the domain controllers. So I'll go put in the path to the domain controller. You can also put in the domain name there and copy from it. I was working just on targeting the one domain controller to see how things replicated when I was doing this. So you can put in there just the domain that you want to go to and where you want to save it locally on your system. /b, I use /s here, and it copies down everything from the domain controller. If you're not running the backup job or robocopy from a high integrity shell, you'll actually get an error back that you do not have the backup and restore file user rights. Don't know exactly why, but as soon as you run it from a high integrity shell, you will not get that error. So even if you're running it as the backup account from a low or medium integrity session, you will get that error. And I think it's the way it's processing it locally on the client that you're on when it's going to do the backup job. To restore files, it's as easy as just changing the source and destination in the robocopy path. So in this case, I was just restoring the GPTINI file and restored it back to the domain controller. Now, figured out I could do all that. Now I wanted to see how I could get privilege escalation. Every Microsoft domain by default has the same GUID for the default domain controller policy, and unless this has changed, which I have not seen an organization yet that's changed it for the default domain controllers, this will always be the GUID. Within the directory seen below, the group policy configuration files for everything within that group policy are stored within that folder. You can go and take a look, dive through it. You'll see a separate GUID for every GPO that there is within the domain. I've been starting to actually go on my tests and pull down the policy for the entire organization and then take it offline and take a look at it. From within that folder, if you go from the GPO path and dive into the machine Windows NT secedit file, there's the GPT TMPL INF file. This is what I'm interested in at this point. What this file does is contains all the permissions that you have for the various different accounts. Right here, this is from the default domain controller group policy. And if you take a look, as we discussed earlier, the backup operator's SID account ends in 551, and we have backup privileges, the ability to log on, the ability to log on interactively, restore files, and shut down the system. This is the default as it comes out of the box. Now, I have the backup account, don't have the SID for it yet, so I use PowerView to go and get the SID of the account. You can use WMI as well, and many other different ways to go and pull it and get the SID. One thing to note is the SID will always have the first portion specific to the domain, and then the actual user part, 1109, will be the user specific. And this is for the backup account. So now that I have the SID for this account, I'm going to go and modify the GPT TMPL INF file to add in some group membership. Now, down here at the bottom, take note, I took the SID of the account and actually made it a member of the local administrators group. This is going to become important later. But that's literally all I did. I took the account, __ member of, equals, and then put the SID of the local administrator's account. Once that was done, I went and restored the file to the domain controller. Did not update the policy version on the DC. Doing that will actually cause a lot of errors on the endpoints if I update it, since I didn't go through the proper channels. This was all done in a 2016 lab, so it's actually Windows 10 clients were throwing errors that the Active Directory database did not have the same version number that I was putting in the GPT or in the GPT INI file. So this is a session on the domain controller. Ran to check the local administrators group. Not in there yet, just administrator, domain admins, and enterprise admins. Updated group policy on there, forced it for time reasons. And then the backup operator was in the local admins group on the domain controller. In real life, when I was attacking the domain, it probably took about 30 minutes or so for the domain controller to update and actually add my account to the backup operators group. And then I had full access across that VSIN. Now, that was going after the domain controller itself. There's some other things we can use this account to do as well. If you want to go after a specific system in the environment, maybe there's a restricted system you want to get access to, something far away in the domain, we can actually go and hunt down that system we want to target. We need to get the GPOs that are applied to that system so that we know what GPOs to go and take a look at in Active Directory. We also need to know the SID of the account that we want to use. So for doing this, use PowerView. I was trying to do this manually for quite some time, and then a friend told me, hey, that's built into PowerView. So I was manually going and pulling what policy was applied to a system, and after spending countless hours and found out about this, it was done for me. Take a look here. So I'm looking to go to ING Win10-4. It's a member of the Finance Workstation group policy, and it gives us nicely the full file system path to get to that group policy as well. It's going to contain that GUID as well for that system, or for that group policy on there. Just using get domain user again here from PowerView to go and pull the SID of the local account, or the account that we want to use to gain access to that domain. So now I'm going to go, this is the default GPTMPL INF file for that Finance Workstation policy. Here we can take a look. There's already an account that has local admin on that workstation. And you see here that we have the SID of the local administrator's account, and then with members defined of it. So what I'm going to do is go and add our account that we want to add to this system. Now I tried taking this initially and doing it like I was doing on the domain controllers, taking the user account SID and then making it a member of administrator's account, and that was failing on the endpoints. It was treating it as this account, the SID of the user account, as a group. So on the workstation, you have to put the group SID first, and then put the SID of the account. Once that was done, saved and updated, the updated group policy, forced it to the DC. This is the system before group policy was updated on it. So take a look. We have just the administrator and the ING workstation admin group as members of the local administrator group on the endpoint. Once group policy updated on the system, we have our backup account in the local admin group. So now we can go and do whatever we want on the system. We have admin access to any of the systems in that OU, or have that group policy object applied once group policy will go and update. So, doing this though, you can end up generating a good amount of noise, adding local administrators to every machine that has a group policy object applied to it. Get pretty noisy. And might start triggering alerts that all of a sudden there's this new local administrator on all these systems. One thing I'd like to do when I'm doing this, I save a copy of the original group policies, and once I'm finished attacking, I'll actually restore the original group policy object to the system. Now, once I'm done with that and even restore the original, there can be some artifacts left on the endpoint. It will cache group policy locally to disk. Many times I've had to go and manually clean up all the local admin permissions that I've added on those systems and query all of them, because it will stay in the local admin group once you are done. So there's some manual cleanup to be done once that's completed. Let's start talking about Active Directory on it. Something that can be enabled. Take a look what's configured to be enabled. It's going to be different on every domain. I haven't run into two that are the same yet, and that will define what's actually logged. Some places just log successful, some log failures. So go and take a look. Luckily for us, we can easily go and take a look at what's actually configured for auditing in the domain. It's stored in a CSV file. So if you take a look here, we can see audit directory service access is enabled for success and failure down there towards the bottom. This is, I just went and checked all the boxes for everything in AD in my lab to turn on auditing for everything. And you'll see the GUID up at the top. It's the same GUID as earlier from the default domain. So I'd recommend if you're going to do this, go through, pull a copy of that file down, go through it. Everyone in the domain can read it and pull it down. In this instance, I was really cared about two of the settings, the detailed file share auditing and the directory service changes. The detailed file share auditing will log all file share access on the system. This is domain control. Every system in the domain is going to be going and pulling down group policy whenever it reboots or every 90 minutes. It's going to generate a lot of logs. So if success and failure is enabled, you might be able to blend it. Directory service changes. That will log any changes to groups or users within Active Directory. And if it's a large domain, there's going to be a lot of logs there on a daily basis. So let's just go back for a second. All the settings are controlled by a CSV file. Backup operators can restore files. Let's disable the auditing. So I literally just went in, deleted it all, and restored it to the DC. So I restored the file. Domain controller has actually updated and replicated this fairly quickly because it's a file share change, so it'll replicate that constantly. And I went in through the GUI, and it shows that none of the Active Directory auditing is no longer configured. So everything is off now. And the GUI respects the changes we made through the CSV. Okay, so now we've turned off editing of group policy. What else can we do? Well, group policy also stores a lot of registry settings in the registry.mol files. This contains both user settings and computer settings. Let's go and edit one of them. Fortunately, you can't just open it with Notepad to go and take a look. Not as easy this time. Luckily, Microsoft has given us a tool, Local Group Policy Object Utility, that we can use to go and parse the file and pull out all the settings that are in there. So we can use this, get out the machine settings and the user settings, and pull them down to a text file. This is an example of one of the machine text files. A little bit different format than you would see it going in through regedit. Go take a look, but looks familiar. This is an example of one of the user files. These are from my lab. Ones from live and active domains are much larger and a lot more data in there. Go and take a look. So now that we have it, I'm going to go and malicious entry to the local key, local machine user settings, or run key. So I put in a PowerShell one-liner for Cobalt Strike there to go and run whenever a user logs in on the machine. Once I added that, I just recombined both the machine and the user settings to a single text file. And once that's done, lgpo.exe also allows us to generate the new registry.pol file. So I used that, generated that, and restored that back to the domain controller. Now if we go and take a look, this was the target machine, Win10-4 again, that I'm going after. This was previous to the run key getting pulled down. If you take a look down at the bottom there, we only have two of the settings, or two run keys with an HK local machine for security, health, and VMware. Once group policy refreshed on the machine and a user logged in, I got a shell. Now keep in mind this will generate a shell if you go this way for every user in that OU when they log into the machine. So once that was actually on the machine, went and took a look just to make sure that the registry key was there, and it's there. Also did learn when going and removing these that the registry keys, even though you may have restored the original registry.pol file, it's still cached on the endpoints, so it will stay there. Now some other things you can do. This is not going to be an in-depth discussion around com hijacks, but it's something you can actually do. And this is a way that you can use group policy with backup account to start targeting specific users. You can use some of the previous techniques that I just went over to go and actually get admin on one system that you're looking for, drop a DLL on that system to a certain path, and then modify group policy to do a com hijack. When you do that, you'll set the path for that com hijack, whatever you're going after there. And when group policy processes the registry.pol file, it'll be there. And only if that DLL is on the disk for that machine will it actually pop and come back to you. So it's a way to target some specific users within the domain with that file. Now there's also a lot of third-party plugins. Centrify is one that I've seen. Wasn't able to get a copy for my lab, so I don't have screenshots of it. But it does store all of its settings in registry.pol files that configures the local admins for Macs, as well as whether SSH is enabled and a number of other services on the Mac. So you can actually use the same technique to go and change all the settings for Macs if Centrify is being used on the domain. There's a number of other third-party plugins out there as well that extend Active Directory. I haven't gotten to play with a lot of them, so see what's out there. Take a look at it. I did actually enable SSH on some endpoints and then get local admin on those systems through using the registry.pol files. Now, I didn't go into too much depth here, but I copied all the group policy files locally. I modified them. I wasn't trying to be sneaky, and I restored them. I could start time stomping them, match the original right time for those files when I pulled them down from the domain controller, then restore them, and nobody would see what's going on there. Restore them back up. Hey, the file didn't change. It last changed then. Unless they're looking at the file's hashes, they're not going to notice the change. And I just want to stress to restore the originals after you're done. Some other things I was trying to do and failed. I was trying to pull a copy of ntds.bit. Was not able to do it because it's locked in and used by the OS. Would have been great to be able to pull that down and get all the user hashes, but did not work. There's also, you can use some other third-party programs that already need to be installed to actually pull it down to get a copy of that. I wanted to try and edit that file, and there's not much out there to actually edit it directly. And when you go to restore it, it's going to be locked in and used unless you're using some other third-party utility to do backups on the system. Now, some of the artifacts that I talked about before, local admin account will end up staying on that endpoint. It'll be there. Go and clean it up. Registry entries may remain. You may want to actually go and just modify that registry entry to be blank when you're done so that it will update on the systems and nothing will actually run. And group policy will accept all our changes, as you saw before the Active Directory auditing. When I restored that file back to the domain controller and you opened up the GUI, you can see that it updated and auditing was no longer configured on the system. Now, what can you do for detection? This is by default. Windows will just log that the backup account had actually done a network log onto the domain controller. You're going to see that with a lot of accounts logging onto the domain controller to go and restore something. But should it be logging in during regular business hours? Or should it just be logging in when you have your backups configured to run for the domain? Some other things you can do for detection. Typically, adding an account via Active Directory users and computers generates event ID 4728 for adding it to the account. Luckily for us, when you add it directly through the GPT TMPL INF file, it does not generate a log entry on the domain controller, so you can actually push that out for group policy, and there's no log generated that was added to the local admin. Event ID 5145. This is from the detailed file share on it, and it will actually take a note here that we wrote data to the audit.csv file. That's one to take an eye log if that happens, if it's happening outside of playing group policy updates, that somebody's modifying group policy from over the network. It should probably just be coming from the domain controllers themselves and not over the network. But take a look at your environment, see what's normal. If they're editing group policy on a local workstation that's syncing to a DC. Not sure how that would look up, so that's something to take a look at and see what would happen and how it looks for you. Now, once group policy does update and disable Active Directory auditing, it does log that the audit policies were changed for the domain. And it will go in, if you open up the log files, it will tell you whether it was changed to audit success and failure, audit success, or if it's now disabled. But we have admins, so we could also just clear out those log entries once we disable audit. Recommend alerting on event ID 5145 followed by 4719. This would be a fairly good way to know that it was modified and group policy was changed. So it would alert on the fact that you wrote back to the file on the domain controller and then group policy settings actually were changed on the system. While auditing settings are disabled, it can be tough to figure out what was actually changed on your domain controller. Turn off auditing, no longer tracking any changes. You can start adding users, creating users, and it may not be there in the logs. You can also clear out the logs and then turn auditing back on to make it look like nothing had ever happened. And within a short period, the logs will probably be full again on a domain controller. What changes got made through Active Directory users' computers while it was disabled? You can actually go back to the GUI and probably not get noticed for making any changes at that point, modifying things. I do recommend file integrity monitoring on the system would actually pick up on this, and it would alert that files had gotten changed on the domain controller, and that's something you could trend over time, watching, see what got changed when, what gets changed on a regular basis, and maybe just configure it to look at the sysvol directory on the domain controller. What does this mean for us? There are a number of files on the domain controller related to Active Directory. I only got through a small portion of all those files that I could find a way to go and edit and manipulate. Keep taking a look at what's out there. Keep going through all of those files and see what there is and how you're able to go through them and manipulate them. And one thing I really learned from all this that was sort of unintended is that by modifying a lot of these systems through the file system and restoring the files, Active Directory was not able to log a lot of what I was doing and bypass the majority of the logging that was in place, even when it was fully turned on from Active Directory on. Some of the conclusions that I have: monitor when your backup accounts log on. If they're logging on outside the regular backup windows, making changes to the file system that they should just be backing up, it's bad. Log any of your changes to files on your domain controllers. Highly recommend putting on file integrity monitoring so that you have that in place, and alert on any of those changes that are not expected. If a file changes in the middle of the afternoon on your DC, go take a look at what happened, what changed. At least you'll be able to see maybe historically, if you have backups, what it looked like before and what it looks like now, and it gives you a way to get back to maybe a good known state. Other than that, that's everything I have. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them. And if you want to reach out to me online, here's my contact info. Reach me on Twitter, dmayer, or email me. Thank you.